Well, thank you everyone for being here today. Really excited to be moderating this panel with Brianna and Andrei. So let's kick it off with a little bit of introductions. I want you guys to go into your background, but also let's do a bit of an icebreaker and do like an interesting fun fact. I'll make you go first.
I'll go first. Okay, so interesting fact about me. I actually am a private pilot, so I fly private airplanes. So if anybody has an airplane and wants me to get some hours on that, let me know after the talk.
Do you want to say anything else about your background, or are we doing the fun fact?
Are we just doing the fun fact, or are we introducing ourselves?
Well, fun fact and introduce yourself.
All right, so my name is Andrei Poliakov. I'm the CEO and founder of APX Lending, the first CSA, with the first crypto-backed lender in Canada to have achieved CSA exemptive relief. Very happy to be here on the stage with Brianna and Koleya.
I'm Brianna Sims. I'm a senior legal counsel at the Ontario Securities Commission in the Trading and Markets Division. So at the OSC, which is one of the 13 provincial and territorial securities regulators here in Canada, for those of you confused why we're not talking about a federal or national regulator. At the OSC, I oversee the registration and oversight of crypto platforms. As part of that, we have a cross-Canada crypto working group, task force, that meets bi-weekly. I'm currently the chair of that. And my fun fact is that I coach ski racing on weekends in the winter, because in Canada you have to enjoy your winters, so that's
very, very true. And we gotta get out there on the ski hill. My little kid's a ski racer too. So my name is Koleya Karringten. I'm the executive director for the Canadian Blockchain Consortium. And I guess my interesting fun fact is I love to hunt, so I'm definitely an Alberta girl. So let's tip into the question. So let's talk a little bit about how the mindset of this industry from a regulatory perspective has shifted over the last 10 years. I remember when I first entered it back in like 2016, 2017, it was very like, no, regulation, we don't fit within any of these traditional buckets. It's the Wild West. And now to start to recognize that regulation is actually essential for mass adoption. So I'd love to get your kind of thoughts on that perspective mindset shift.
We'll go first. You want to go?
Sure. So I think there's two questions there. One is the shift in the attitudes toward regulation generally, and the other is in Canada specifically. So I think most people here understand that regulation is crucial to the thriving crypto industry. You know, everyone wants a fair market. You want to reward the honest players. Crucially, I think for investors, whether it be retail or institutional, you need a solid basis of trust in the institutions that are overseeing. So that's where the regulation comes in. In Canada specifically, I like to think part of the the mindset shift is that we have created that trustworthy structure here. You know, we have a system where you can come in, you speak to us. We have a principles-based regulation. So you know, we have the key principles that we abide by, and if you come in with a proposal of how you're going to meet those principles, what controls you're going to have in place, how you're going to protect Canadians, we have an open door to talk to you and figure out how to get you registered here. So since that has been going on, you know, we've got a dozen platforms registered in Canada and adding more new types every day, as APX is one of them. So I think that's really been part of the mindset shift, is creating that structure.
I like that.
Yeah, so I've been in this industry for almost a decade at this point in time. Prior to Apex, I ran one of the first CSA registered crypto-backed trading platforms called Coinberry. And so sort of watching, I think, what's transpired over the past decade, and Koleya, you're absolutely right. I think back in like early 2017, 2016, and 18, the approach, I think, from the industry was very much so anti-regulation, anti-establishment. But as the industry matures and we sort of see the necessity for certain you know, regulatory oversight and some of the implosions that happened in the past, really becoming, you know, compliant, registered, regulated, licensed, has become a core pillar of any, I think, crypto business that is tending to you know, grow and serve as a mass market. So at Apex, you know, one of our core value propositions to our clients is our our compliance status with the regulators in Canada. I think we'll see that more and more fundamentally as the industry continues to mature going forward.
No, fantastic. All right, so to my next question then. So how has the regulatory landscape evolved, and what does this signal in terms of business opportunities? Because I've seen from a global perspective, if you look at like Japan or Singapore, they have a golden passport in the UAE right now, business opportunities coming into El Salvador. So the regulatory landscape and environment, the evolution of it has really signaled a business-friendly environment. How do you view Canada in terms of like our regulatory landscape evolution, and how friendly can our Canadian environment be? And do you see it actually becoming more friendly as we continue to grow?
You want to go?
You can go ahead this time.
Loaded question.
Yeah. So I mean, look, I think if we look at sort of the fact that the Canadian regulators, and we're probably one of the earliest ones in the world to put together a framework for crypto trading platforms. I think Canada was one of the first ones to put in place a regulatory framework that actually stipulated, how a crypto trading platform could work. And I think that really set us on a really, really good path as a country within, the bigger global crypto industry. And so, as we see sort of that expanding now, those frameworks expanding into lending and staking, stablecoins, whatever else is, whatever other discussions are taking place. I think it's important that the regulators continue to be adaptable to an industry that changes very, very quickly. The crypto industry is one of probably the most high growth industries in the world right now, and so when you have regulators that are willing to work with companies on innovative regulatory frameworks so that new businesses, new ideas, new services can be brought to clients in a compliant, safe, and secure manner, I think that's very, very important. And we've been very fortunate to have a great, great rapport and relationship with our regulators in Canada here, and in sort of pushing the frontier of the crypto industry, again, within that compliant, safe, and secure manner that addresses risk, that addresses borrower protection, investor protection, and things of that nature.
Yeah, I agree. We did have to start earlier than most other jurisdictions. As a result of that, we really did rely on the industry coming to talk to us and to help us create the ecosystem that we have today. And I think bringing in those platforms that were willing to help us and willing to be part of the industry has created a culture here of, there's pride and ownership in the industry that we've worked on together. I also think, you're asking what makes sort of Canada an attractive market. I think Canadians have disposable income, they have high education, they have greater interest in and knowledge of crypto than most. And on top of that, what is very attractive for businesses in a time of chaos is the stability. Like, there's predictability about what the rules are, there's predictability about what the process is, and so I think that's something that is very attractive in this day and age.
No, I would agree, because just viewing it maybe even from a North American perspective, when a lot of people, like Canada still doesn't rank one of the top 10 jurisdictions in the world for this industry, even though interestingly enough we've contributed so much value to the global ecosystem. If you look at the Bitcoin white paper, a bunch of the guys on that were actually Canadian. Ethereum, even if it's controversial, launched in Canada. Even the CEO of Binance, he was Canadian. One of the things that I did appreciate about the regulatory process, even watching it back in 2019, when we did have some of our own experiences with companies here, when the regulators got engaged, they started working groups. Right, you guys started, I think IROC had a working group around some of these issues. We really focused in on custody. One of the things I'd be very proud of is FTX couldn't have happened in Canada. Not that we want to talk about anything negative from the past, but just based on the fact that the regulators did step in, they really focused heavily on custody, on making sure that consumers were protected, and the fact that we actually had a path to being a full restricted dealer license long before the states did. I mean, the states initially started doing just enforcement action through guidance. right? As opposed to developing out that collaborative opportunity to engage, learn about the process. Like through the consortium, we've had a lot of roundtables engaging directly with regulators and going to you asking, what is it that you'd like to know more about within the industry? What questions do you have? And then bringing the industry together to help give you their perspective. And the fact that you guys have spent so much time doing that with us over the last 6 or 7 years really does show that we have a more friendly environment. Like, we might not be where some of the other countries that are more nimble are, but I also think it speaks to the fact that we have a bit of a fragmented, regulatory system. We have like IROC and then, CIRO and then CSA and, Finance Canada. Like, we don't have the same kind of regulatory structure. One of the things I'd love to know is, what do you think we could do to improve to be better? I know timing is always a big one. Being able to get in and get regulated ASAP isn't exactly going to happen. But given your experience as a regulator, your experience working with regulators, what could Canadian regulatory framework do to better support business growth? And then how important is it for that regulation to be able to be agile?
Well, maybe I'll let you go first on this one again, speaking it, since you've just gone through that whole process.
Sure, yeah.
Probably have lots of feedback.
I have a lot of feedback. No. So with APX Lending, our business is compliant crypto-backed lending. So if our borrowers want to borrow against their cryptocurrencies, they can borrow with us through a compliant and company with regulatory oversight and working within a regulated framework. Having approached our regulators very early on in the life cycle of Apex, we knew coming in that when you work with regulators on an innovative product, there is fundamentally a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of discussions that have to take place. That's just an inevitable reality of breaking new ground. I think what would probably help other companies that are looking to work with regulators is if there is sort of more transparent, established timelines that everybody can sort of rely on. Because when you're building a new company, when you're building a startup, delays inevitably, result in risk, whether it's fundraising risk or other risks to launch and timelines. So I think having a more sort of robust feedback loop, a more sort of framework-driven, timeline-driven feedback loop would have helped us a lot, and I think would probably help other players that are looking to break ground. Because otherwise you're kind of in this black box and you don't really know when you're going to reach the end of that black box. You know it's going to happen, but you don't know when. And so planning comes into play. So that would be one of my core feedbacks, because otherwise we've had a really positive experience working with the regulators here in Canada and especially in Ontario. So we want to thank the commissions in working with us to break ground and push this industry forward so we can continue to bring compliant, safe, and secure products and services to our clients in Canada and abroad.
Thank you, Andrei. That's very nice. I think we're well aware of some of that feedback. Part of the difficulty is obviously we can't speak about things that we haven't approved yet, right? So we do a lot of other approaches for sharing the work that we're doing and the research that we're doing. So we publish research on novel topics. I think we just published something on influencers and automated market makers. So we're doing research, we're contributing to papers. That helps support the industry. I think a key way of bringing innovation and growth to this as well is that investor education piece. That's something else the OSC is really focused on, because there's still a lot of questions. There's still a lot of a lack of trust in the industry from new players, and so being a resource, providing, here are the platforms that are allowed to operate here. Here are some basics on crypto. That's a way of helping the industry grow and stabilize. So I think those are important. We do. I take your point about when there is more clarity needed, we publish guidance on our rules where we think it needs to be published. And so it is important for us to hear from the platforms we regulate and from others in the industry about what those pain points are, about where there is a lack of clarity, and we are working on that as well. So I think that's sort of the message that the OSC really does want to help grow the capital markets, and it does rely on platforms being willing to come in and spend the time and talk with us about their technology and proposed solutions to these new problems. But overall, I would have to say in my time at the OSC, I've been very impressed by how the industry does help us create a strong and stable Canadian crypto industry, and so would invite other platforms that are thinking about it or other people like that to reach out and ask questions of us. And I won't point them out in the audience, but there are some other regulators here at the conference as well. They might not be showing their badges as much as others, but they're very friendly and probably would be happy to talk to you if you found them on the floor.
I love that. One of my kind of favorite descriptions I heard from a gentleman named Lucas Matheson when I was listening to him kind of talk about the industry. He's like, it's like we're building a plane while flying it at the same time, right? Like, it is a very rapidly evolving industry, and regulation is never kept with the pace of innovation.
Yeah.
And it's understandable, right? Because as new technology comes forward and you have like incredibly talented regulators having to now understand this new technology, how it fits an existing framework, I do think that Canada is doing a wonderful job in the sense of like, you guys are very engaging, you guys are friendly, we have great rapport and working relationships. I guess the only area I would see that Canada could improve on is actually getting more of a legislative position to come forward. Where I've seen the most forward-thinking, innovative countries, it generally is actually government going, wow, this is amazing. We want to attract these businesses here. How do we create this more friendly environment? Tabling legislation from Parliament going, how do we develop out, say, something like a MiCA or, payment rails out in the UK? So, I think we still have a little bit to go in terms of helping to educate our policymakers on the value of this industry, but I think most critically, seeing alignment from industry and regulators as we discuss this with policymakers and keeping it a collaborative approach is really critical to help move it forward. So we have a couple minutes left. I would love some last minute takeaways. What would you like the audience to kind of hear as that final note?
I think from my end, it's, I'm not sure how much of the audience is from Canada versus from elsewhere in the world, but either way, I would encourage you to go check out the OSC website. There's lots of resources there. As I said, go find your local regulator and ask any questions you have. I think the not that it's a pitch, but the pitch from the OSC is that again, we are very pro innovation as long as it protects Canadians and checks all those principles boxes. So very happy to hear from you, and look forward to seeing you out on the floor.
Love it.
I think on my end, the takeaway really is that regulation is not the enemy of innovation. As a matter of fact, at a certain point in the maturity of an industry, and I think we're at that point right now, regulation is a necessity to continue building and build trust for mass adoption. So I'm very optimistic of the crypto industry and where we're heading. I'm very optimistic about our particular business with APX Lending and where crypto-backed lending is heading, working together with regulators to continue to bring to Canadians and our clients globally a compliant product that really takes into account risk and investor protection. And fundamentally, as an industry, continuing working together with regulators to advance the bigger cause. So for me, the future is very, very optimistic right now, and I hope to continue working together with our regulators in Canada and in Ontario to advance the industry forward in partnership.
That's great.
I love that. Well, thank you guys so much for being a part of this conversation today. I hope the audience found this insightful and meaningful. And if you have any questions for our panelists, I'm sure they'll be hanging out around here after the talk. So thank you.